Welcome to Show and Tell. In this series, I review brand new games quickly and with as much detail as possible. Ready? Go. The Coma Cutting Class, a 2D horror from South Korean-based Dev Espresso Games. Interesting name for a studio. While viewing screenshots for the Coma, as well as when I began playing the game, I was reminded of two other games. To a lesser extent, a game I haven't played, but that I've heard a lot about, called Clock Tower, which released on the SNES and later the original PlayStation. The only reason it popped into my head was because the Coma is 2D and relies on run and hide mechanics, where you are given no option to fight back. And from what I understand, Clock Tower is the grandfather of the run and hide genre. That's a pretty loose connection, but the other game was Corpse Party. I'd be really surprised if Dev Espresso didn't take inspiration from Corpse Party for this game. The atmosphere is almost carbon copied, and I don't really mean that as an insult to the developers of the Coma, because Corpse Party is a great game. The Coma, like Corpse Party, is set in a school within a terrifying other dimension, and that's about as far as the similarities go. But this review is for the Coma, not Corpse Party. For the most part, I like the way the Coma is presented. It's got that Eastern Asia style to it, or just anime style. I will say that it has carried over some negative anime tropes in the animation. A lot of the female characters are ridiculously busty, and many of them are dressed pretty sexually. I mean, that's not to say those design choices are objectively bad, but to me, it came across as kind of juvenile and lazy in terms of writing. Though it might not bother you that much, it bothers me a little, but Corpse Party was far worse in the fan service department, for sure, and I still love that game. Other than that, I think the design of the characters is good and varied. The monsters can be pretty freaky, and I particularly liked the environment design. It often remained fresh for me, despite being exclusively set within a school. Plus, the performance was perfect, which was really the icing on the cake. I always love it when a game runs buttery smooth. At the beginning of the game, the mechanics worked well. It's kind of an open world in that all the areas that you access can be revisited at any time. You even have side quests, which I'll explain in a little bit. Basically, the entire game consists of you wandering around this pretty much empty school. You just have to complete objectives, find items, etc. in order to progress. At the same time, you are trying to avoid a monster that is stalking the hallways. This is fine when you are in a relatively small area and where navigation is pretty easy. I think that the way the monster runs at you in this game was genuinely scary, and I did feel anxious walking around the hallways as I tried to listen for footsteps and breathing to let me know it was near. For this reason, headphones are recommended for this game. But this kind of fell apart the later the game went on. Part of the reason for this is the fact the monster doesn't change all that much. It changed once, about 2/3 of the way through the game, but it's pretty much the same enemy with a slight reskin and buff to do a little more damage. However, most of the reason for the decline in quality was that as the environments got bigger, they also got more complicated and tedious to navigate. By the end of the game, avoiding the monster was a complete chore, and it didn't help that many of your objectives were structured in the same way. Go to point A, go to point B, and then return to point A. There's a direct negative correlation with my enjoyment and the length of time I played this game. It's only about 4 to 6 hours, and I feel that was enough for me. I think I could have looked past the mechanical shortcomings, but the story just wasn't there. The plot felt really basic. It didn't go anywhere compelling past trying to escape this nightmare. The only character who received any kind of real development was the main character, and even then nothing really that interesting goes on with him. It just feels like the story is a straight shoot to the end, and most of the time doesn't diverge in any meaningful way. Now, I'm going to give this game the benefit of the doubt. I think the ending I got was not the true ending, or at least I really hope it wasn't. There's side quests in this game, and I did all of them bar, I think, one, so I didn't get the good ending. Maybe do some research before you buy and see if there are multiple endings, because if there isn't, the story is abhorrently bad. The ending I got was so awful that I can only assume it was a bad ending. Otherwise, there's some pretty funny little references in the writing, even if a lot of the jokes fell flat for me. If you're a fan of a typical anime-style humor, then you may very well enjoy the jokes. There's a lot of jokes that are based on the main character's attraction to different women in the game. It's that kind of humor. I have to say that for $10, it's a pretty okay experience. I think that's a reasonable price for the roughly 4 to 6 hours you'll get out of this game, though I think for the majority of people, it may be a wait for a sale situation. It's not a terrible game, there is certainly some value with the genuine creepiness, but it's not really mind-blowing either. If you're dying to play it, it's not a bad deal, but if you're only kinda interested, you should definitely wait. Thank you so much for watching. If you thought this was a good review, consider leaving a like because that makes it easier for other people to find this video. If not, leave a dislike guilt-free, but try and leave some feedback in the comments on how it can improve for next time. See ya.